Ramsey, okay, not too long ago. I can't even remember exactly how long. This was at $2 trillion, and people were saying, "Oh, it's going to be a long time before it hits 3." How on earth could AR/VR be the justification for going even higher from here? Given that, I mean, it's probably going to be really expensive, right? Like more expensive than an iPhone.
Hey, John. Hey, John. Thanks for having me. Look, I think that these sort of landmarks of 1 trillion, 2 trillion, 3 trillion. I mean, these are just manifestations of people's expectations of, what is the ultimate growth and profitability of this company, right? Here we've got a company that's churning out over $1 billion in revenue a day, right? I mean, these are staggering numbers. And that too at extremely profitable margins. So when you take a look at Apple over time, what it's done is really transformed itself from a cyclical hardware story that used to have 38% gross margins that people viewed as risky and headed down, to a company that is actually much more stable now, given the services sort of story has become such a more meaningful part of it, along with 42% gross margins. And frankly, the mix is headed higher, both with vertical integration, which you've highlighted in the past, as well as what they're doing on the services side. So when you put that all together, that's what is going to drive the stock higher. The introduction of new products is always a multiple enhancing. It's not the sole driver of it. I mean, obviously iPhones have to continue to do well, and they're doing extremely well there. So there's a lot to it beyond just AR, VR. But I think like what AR, VR does is that it just gives an opportunity, expands the TAM, which is the biggest thing that Apple needs. And so when people talk about AR, VR in the car, that's what I think is important.
So what's the lesson here? Because in the past, people talked about Samsung as being this big threat to Apple. Apple needed a cheaper iPhone. Well, it turns out now they have one. They also have a more expensive iPhone. The more expensive one sells better. They've also built out the services strategy, as you mentioned. They've got AirPods. They've got Apple Watch. They don't necessarily get the credit they deserve for that innovation, but those are selling really, really well. What is it about Apple that people missed when they were criticizing it for not having come up with the Amazon Echo?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, John. I think that people have typically underestimated Apple from an innovation standpoint, right? Like, I mean, you hear this a lot, is that, oh, they've not been innovative. Well, the iPhone was the last piece of innovation. If you look at what they have done within the iPhone, I mean, that's where the innovation is. I mean, look at how big a chip company Apple has become in its own right. What they've done with M1, what they've done with the A processors within the iPhone, where you have GPUs embedded, where you've got computational photography, which has taken a life of its own. This is where the innovation is. It's not just, and it's in the user experience. I mean, that's what they excel at, which we see every day, we use and we interact with, and that's the more obvious piece. But I think the piece that's really missed is what's happening underneath, and that is what is enabling that user experience that is so unique to Apple, where it can talk so seamlessly with the rest of its product portfolio, where the power envelope has gone down so much, where the speed of these devices has gone up immensely. So you've just seen all this innovation sort of behind the scenes in some way that hasn't really, caught the imagination of people in the same way that it would if you saw it more in form factor or something like that.